are to come closer to a homeland. The British want allies in the Middle East. The Arabs are fighting the Turkish Ottomans for independence, and the British back them. British ally Russia is losing the will to continue, and believing the Jews could influence the Russians, the British back Jewish claims for a homeland.
The Arabs and the Zionists felt more and more that conflicting promises had been made, to each of them promising Palestine.
After the war, the Germans are defeated. The Middle East is divided between the British and the French. Palestine is now governed by Britain. Their fateful decision in 1919 to adopt the Jewish claim for a homeland as official policy is to affect the Holy Land from that moment on.
The British mandate was designed specifically to bring about the creation of a national home for the Jews, which ultimately meant a state, with no similar commitment to self-government or independence or statehood for the indigenous inhabitants, in other words, the Palestinian Arabs.
Encouraged by the attitude of the British, 35,000 Jews emigrate to Palestine over the next 4 years. Palestinian unease about the influx leads to riots against the Jews and the British, culminating in the 3-year Arab Revolt of 1936. The Palestinians are crushed by the British and their leadership destroyed. The Jews continue to arrive, although the British start limiting numbers. The end of the Second World War makes the question of a recognized homeland a priority. 6 million Jews are exterminated in the Nazi death camps during the Holocaust, and the survivors are determined that it will never happen again. With no safe haven in Europe, because countries turn them away, they look to the land of Palestine, a land the Jewish Bible, the Torah, calls Israel. But the Palestinian Arabs don't want any more Jews immigrating, and to keep the peace, the British limit the influx, turning boatloads away. Horrified by the British attitude and fearful that they might lose their claim to a homeland, some Zionists turn to terrorism. But as these early pictures show, the British got tough.
At the beginning, we trusted the British that they were going to give us the homeland for the Jews, and slowly by slowly the British started to retreat from the mandate, and I decided, and the only way is that I've got to fight to free my country.
But the Arabs aren't going to concede their country and also start fighting. In 1947, the UN meets to vote on a solution. Europe and America had limited Jewish immigration, and thousands are living in refugee camps. Yet recent images of the Holocaust are fresh in the minds of many Americans. President Truman recalls his feelings.
It is my attitude that the American government couldn't stand idly by while the victims of Hitler's madness are not allowed to build new lives.
Zionists lobby the UN delegates to vote yes.
The United Kingdom, abstain. The United States, yes.
The resolution of the Dutch Committee for Palestine was adopted by 33 votes, 13 against, 10 abstentions.
The UN decide that Palestine should be divided into separate Jewish and Arab states. The Palestinian Arabs are allocated sections to the northwest, in the center, a strip by the sea, and land on the Egyptian border. The Zionists are given what remains, while Jerusalem is to be controlled by the UN. But the Palestinians reject the plan. Nasser al-Din al-Nashashibi is a member of one of Palestine's most influential families.
When they hear that the United Nations voted for the implementation of that decision of partition, I remember my father was next to me here in that house and was listening to the radio about the vote of the dividing Palestine, and he said, mark it, my son, this is the beginning of bloodshed in the whole area. There will never be peace again.
The Palestinians protest the division of their homeland, but the Jews are determined to establish their own state there. Jewish terrorist groups start to drive some Arabs out by force. Deir Yassin is a strategically important Palestinian village on the Jerusalem Road. These photographs, never previously broadcast in the West, show the aftermath of a surprise attack by those terrorists.
Deir Yassin was particularly ugly. The original number was thought to be about 240 or 50 civilians killed, almost entirely after the village had surrendered. People going into houses one by one, machine gunning, lobbing in grenades through windows, taking people out, lining them against walls, disemboweling pregnant women, throwing survivors down wells, and eventually parading the remaining survivors, stripped naked, in trucks through western Jerusalem.
As news of the massacre spreads, Palestinians flee in panic.
We lost everything. We lost our furniture. My uncle had a library of 60,000 books, and it was all taken and burned and looted. All our carpets, all our jewelry, or our money, whatever you want to call it, was taken.
The Jews have won a great battle, but the long war only just begins.